Welcome back to the Successful Working Parents Podcast, the podcast where we talk to successful working parents. My guest today, he is an internet marketing consultant. He is the creator of Dad University, an online school for dads, and a father of two. Ladies and gentlemen,
Jason Kreidman.
Jason, welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you?
Great. Thank you for coming. So I usually like to talk a little bit first about somebody's career. So I'd love to hear just a little background on your career.
Yeah, so I started in internet marketing. Wow. I went to grad school in 97, finished in 98, got a master's in entrepreneurship, and just immediately started doing internet marketing. My mother actually was an author and seminar speaker, very successful in personal relationships. And so I actually started in sort of that world, helping her do e-commerce and marketing online. So I was involved in internet marketing back in 97, 98.
And you have two kids.
Yeah, 15-year-old son and 13-year-old daughter, and married as well. Been married for 17 years.
Congrats. Do you feel like your skill set and background in internet marketing in any way has informed the way you're a parent?
I do. It's funny. I haven't really looked at it like that, but as you said that, I do. And one of the things is probably, as an internet marketer, you can't really kind of sit on your laurels. You can't really just assume that something is going to go the same way the next time. And being an internet marketer over the years, I have had to pivot based on the market and based on changes that are happening. And I think that's a lot like parenting. I mean, parenting a baby is different than parenting a toddler, which is different than parenting a teen. So, just like my skills in marketing, you got to keep up your skills. You got to keep learning. It's not just a set it and forget it type of thing. That doesn't work with, especially if you're a consultant and someone's paying you for results.
Yeah.
That doesn't work. So
do you feel like after you became a parent, any of your skills as in parenting translated into the way that you approach your career?
Maybe I was more resilient to not having to sleep. It's interesting. They've, up until I was doing Dad University, they were just very separate. So I hadn't really given that much thought, but of course, as I began doing Dad University, the business, if you will, became part of my parenting. So it's like, I mean, I could obviously go on for quite a while about, how Dad University's changed. I mean, that's allowed me to like focus on specific areas where I might be deficient or, I mean, that's definitely been, as my career has continued, it's been hugely parallel, if you will.
Yeah. And we'll get into some of the nitty gritty about Dad University, but I'm curious just more generally as a busy working parent, how do you find the time to juggle the two, business owner, consultant, and father?
And husband and son and friend. And I talk a lot about this stuff. And one thing that I had learned, and actually it was from a sales trainer that I was doing some sales training. I was taking sales training. And he had said, you don't have to be perfect at everything every day. And, you might be a really good husband one day, but you didn't do that great at work. And then the next day you were hanging out with your friends or your buddies. And so you were a great friend, but you didn't hang out with your kids. So I really took that philosophy and applied it to my own life, where I was trying to be sort of this perfectionist in every element of my life and realizing that each day I can start over, and it's cumulative, obviously, and so you just have to have sort of this internal gauge. And obviously sometimes where something is making more noise, that you're going to get that attention. It's the squeaky wheel gets the grease, if your wife is saying something that, hey, I need some attention there, or your children you're noticing that your children are needing some things from you, then you've got to make that there, that, provide that attention. And the same thing with your work. I do think that it is difficult to be good at everything all the time. And, we have we all have our priorities. We all have what we feel is valuable, and that's different. And so I actually teach a course on work-life harmony, and it's different for everybody. It's not like, hey, this is how much time you allocate to this, and this is how much time you allocate to that. I mean, part of the process is auditing your life and figuring out like what's really important to you. Is watching a movie at night, sitting in bed for 2 hours important to you? Well, take that into consideration, but then don't complain that you don't have enough time for X, Y, and Z. You know, so that's a big part of it, and the fact that everybody is different. There are some people that are very happy working 18 hours a day. There's other people that like couldn't imagine doing that.
Yeah, I definitely haven't had the luxury of watching movies in bed in the last few weeks
Well,
since
you have a
becoming a father.
newborn. Yeah, although sometimes you'll be able to watch, with maybe the newborn next to you, you'll be able to do that.
That's true. Yeah. How about tips for self-care? Like, do you ever find time for yourself? How do you make time for yourself? How do you take care of yourself?
Yeah, the analogy that I've often used was, putting on your mask for, like when an airplane's going down, you have to put on your mask first before you put on, somebody else's. And it is absolutely true as a parent and as a husband and as a son, friend, and everything else, is that you do have to do that self-care. For me, I have some things that are sort of these non-negotiables, and that's my exercise, which includes, I do weightlifting pretty much every day in the mornings. And then I do yoga multiple times a week as well. I meditate. There's some things that are just part of my routine that are kind of non-negotiable. And if there is, not enough quote time, and I'll make the time. I get up early, we're going to leave to go somewhere. I'll get up before that to work out, and my wife is very similar. So we sort of support each other in that. But yeah, the self-care has been very important. And especially when you've got young children and such. I probably, someone from the outside might audit me and say, well, you could probably do more hobby, sort of enjoyment time. Like I don't have a lot of that, where like I love to go golf or I love to hang out with the boy. Like I don't have a ton of that time, but it's not something that I'm like looking for or feel like I'm missing. So, and I think the other is having a supportive spouse as well. And, and I do in that regard, and then vice versa. She enjoys to have her own time. So, I do think it's healthy. It's part of it's important to have that. I think same thing we talked about before. Everyone has different requirements. I don't have a lot of requirements in that aspect. For me, I'd rather record a video. I had about a 45-minute gap yesterday where I was dropping my kids off for they do martial arts, and I had to pick them up in 45 minutes. And so I did a live, it was because it's right near my office. So like, it's like versus me going for a quick jog, which I could do, or I could go shopping, or, I just decided to make content. So it really depends on what your interests are and what your priorities are. And,
were you always wired that way, or did you have other interests and hobbies that have kind of fallen to the wayside as
sports have always been something. And so for me, that, moving from that into like weight training and yoga has, continued. But yeah, no, I mean, other than when I was maybe a bachelor, I was really into some, sports cars, and did some things, but I think maybe I have. I've always done work that I've enjoyed. So for me, it doesn't, when I'm doing this as a podcast, or, I'm recording and it's about content, or it's about talking about business, or like, this is fun for me. I as much as it can be work because I'm trying to promote something, or we're, trying to do some sort of business, like whatever, I'm trying to get the word out. I enjoy it. And so, there are times where I've been at my office, because I have an office away from the house, 10:30, 11 at night, and I zone out. Like I'm in the zone. There's a little bit less of that as I get older. I've been doing this now I've been in the, quote, professional for 25 plus years, 26 years. So it gets a little tiring, but Yeah, I mean, you got to do what you enjoy for sure.
So you're talking about not being perfect at everything every day, and just kind of what is your priority going to be. It's, how do you rank those things? It sounds like sometimes you put the career first or the work first.
Yeah, well, you audit it. It's I actually have an exercise where I'll go and actually write it down. It's like what's really important. Well, it's like, you know, um, right now my children at 15 and 13 need a lot less attention. They don't want it. Like they're out hanging out with their friends.
Right. Yeah.
So, it's funny because we sat down last night for dinner and we all were kind of commenting. We're like, well, it's been a little bit since we've all had dinner together. They're on summer break. They've been hanging out with friends. And so that those, so I know that that's less, like at this time in my life. Now, my business has required a little bit more of me. I'm doing some heavy content work and recordings and building courses and doing that. So that's more. So it kind of, yeah, you audit it and it changes all the time. Um, I've had a desire more recently, and I mean, to say desire, but like my wife and I spending a little bit of time. We went away for the weekend last weekend, and like, because we know that that's important, and we haven't done that in a while. So it's like this consistent balance and gauging of what's happening in your life and what's important. I think the only consistent thing is change. Like it's not always the same. And for some people that could be their community, it could be their spirituality or church or something. I mean, there's all different inputs. um I've got family. Like I have a father who is has dementia, and so now that adds a different dynamic of like, okay, when am I going to see him? I just made an appointment to like go and hang out with him for lunch. It's like you just, I don't know. I don't know that there's a great answer. I'm all over the place, actually.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. When there were times when your kids needed you more, and your family just required more of your attention, how do you make time for your family? Is it just a matter of setting expectations with work, or how do you carve that time out?
Well, I've always been an entrepreneur, so that's helped. And then I've also always had a supportive spouse. Um, and so, that those things have made it a lot easier. I will say that, if you're an entrepreneur and you don't have a supportive spouse, you're in trouble. Like, it's not gonna, you're
Probably the
not.
case no matter what you're doing. If you don't have a supportive spouse, right? You're
Yeah,
probably in trouble.
well, let's think of like the time. But I will say that, I remember I was doing this project when my first child, my son, was very young, and I was working at a company, like doing the on-site consulting and doing this stuff. And my wife had mentioned and said, listen, because dinners were very, like mealtime was really, we both said that's really important for us, like for me to be there. And she called me out and she said, listen, I just noticed like you've been working a lot later and we haven't been able to do that as much. I really would appreciate if you could be, I was like, got it. I only need to be told once. That's like um my superpower. And I saw it. The way that she communicated it was heartfelt. And I just said, okay, I'm out. Like I'll cut it off at 5:30. I'll be home at 6. Like, in worst case, because we were talking about it, I said, I can always, go from 6 to 8 and then, or, family time. And then from 8 to 10, I can do more work. Like it was just carving that out. And it was good. It was communication. That's been something of having that communication and really understanding. I think my wife has understood, hey, I know this is important to you, but this is also important to me. And so how do we make that work? And we've had that ability to sort of communicate that.
Yeah.
Not always perfect, but at least, in that instance, I understood it was really important that I was home. And it was more of a like reminder. Oh yeah, I agreed to this.
Any other tools in the tool belt for the busy working parents that are listening to this, as far as what helps you juggle everything?
Um, I think one of the things to do too is learn self-compassion. I actually took a course on self-compassion for like 3 days. It was this amazing course because I had never really done that before, of like giving myself this compassion that like, this is hard, like life. life is hard. You add a spouse, you add a job, you add a baby, you add a dog, you add your, like you add these things, it becomes complex. And when you care about all of them, it is complex, and it's even more complex. It's one thing if you don't pay attention to them, but when you really are trying to pay attention to do these things well, it takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of energy, and it takes a lot of time. And so, having that self-compassion, because I don't think I gave myself that much early on, is I learned to sort of like, it's okay that I'm not perfect. It's okay that I wasn't there today, or that I didn't get this client because I couldn't schedule them. Like, it's okay. And that's been probably, that's been a good game changer for me later on. And then the other is taking care of yourself physically and mentally. So for me, it is sleep, exercise, and diet. Like, those are, that's it. Those are non-negotiables. Like the other day, it was like, I think it was like 8:30. I was done for the day. Like, I'm done. I don't want to be up. My kids are like just getting started because it's summer, got some friends over, and my wife was trying to wind down. Like, I go, I'm out. Like, I'm going to sleep. It's 8:30, but I'd rather sleep than sit here and watch TV, or like I don't need it. I'm done. I'm done for the day. I just, I want to get an extra hour or two of sleep. So it was one of those moments where I just, you got to be a little selfish. And I say, unless there was something to do or something that I needed to handle, there wasn't,
Yeah.
And, when the children are younger, that is more difficult to do. Your time doesn't feel like your own, especially as a parent. The obligations are just different. It's physically exhausting. Even if you have a partner that you guys are, handing off back and forth, it's tiring. It just is. And you got to take breaks. You have to communicate really well, with each other.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit more about Dad University. Just tell us a little bit about what Dad University is.
Yeah. So I created Dad University. I didn't intend it actually to be really a business. It's turned into that. And, the purpose of it was, I was going through my own struggles and my own journey and learning these, like, whether it was parenting techniques and skills. I was taking classes. I went and got this like parenting coach certification. And all of a sudden I was like, there's got to be other guys struggling with this. And there's just not a lot of resources on, especially online. There just wasn't. Couple videos here and there, a couple things. Now there's a little bit more, but this was years ago. I started like a podcast with like 8 or 9 years ago or whatever it was. I don't even know what it is at this point. It was a long time ago. And, I had meetings locally. I was doing things, and I realized that there was this need. And it really took off when I started doing videos. The videos on YouTube, those really captured some people's attention. And from there, built this website where I built courses, and there's a membership now. And so, people can, it's pay what feels good. So it's literally like donation type based, where you can choose what you want to spend, and you get access to all my videos and all my courses and everything. So part of it's been this passion project that has sort of grown into more of a business. And, that's continued. It's just continued to grow as I was just interviewed yesterday. I've got another one this afternoon, and people are interested in the material. And I think it's because there's a need. There's men want to do better. They want information. There's just not a lot of resources out there for us.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's a big part of the reason why I had created this podcast, was to learn from people like yourself. Do you feel like you've become a better father from creating Dad University?
Yeah. I have to eat my own dog food,
Yeah.
I have talked about my own journey that, I'm a recovering yeller, and recovering complainer. There's a lot of things that I have done in the past that through my learnings and studying and talking with people and, creating, that, yeah, I absolutely have become what I would think is a better, better communicator, better father, better husband. Um, yeah, and many times, selfishly, I focused on topics that I knew I needed to improve. You know, when I was like figuring out that complaining wasn't working, I did a bunch of studying and research and realized like, oh wow, there is better ways to do this. Let me do a video on complaining.
So you're putting out a lot of content that you've put research into. It's not necessarily just your own ideas or your own style.
No, I mean a lot, and I go through that in some of my course materials. Like, there's many philosophers and teachers before me. It's really what's worked, and then also talking about my journey. So yeah, I mean a lot of times I'll read. I've been through my own courses. I have a mentor. And a lot of it's based on like positive psychology. Positive parenting. Very similar, Dreikers, these psychologists and such that, that's a lot of it. And then of course, just, yeah, when I go through something and I have my own experience, that's kind of how I lend, my 2 cents to it. There are certainly people that feel differently and they make it very clear online, if they don't agree with you.
Classic.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, if I talk about spanking or toddler discipline or anything like that, I mean,
yeah,
that's, forget about it. I get comments, which comments are fine. I mean, even if somebody wants to hate, like that's cool. Cause I talk about that too, of like, somebody else's emotions, it's theirs, it's their emotions. It's not my responsibility. So,
I mean, creating content, I think at this point in 2023 is something that a lot of people I know want to do. And I know a lot of people listening to this have wanted to put more content out there. It's something that I've struggled with myself as far as not necessarily creating it, but the putting it out there part and being vulnerable in that way of putting yourself out there for criticism. So did that come easily to you? Was that something that was new for you when you first started? And how have you dealt with that?
Yeah, no, you have to put your ego aside. I've got stories, that's for sure. Like my second video that I put out was actually for the longest time my most popular video. And even when I was like, I got better lighting, better cameras, better everything. I had like somebody else come in and film me and do all that. That second video, I kid you, I mean, there's outtakes, which I probably have deleted since. Camera, or like I have a sheet behind me and it fell down in the middle of recording. I had lights that were like coming up off and shining up my nose, and like I didn't know anything about sound and lighting and content. I mean, writing content and storytelling, and it's the same kind of thing. It's you just have to study it and be interested in it. I think at the core, I like to teach. That's the part, I don't care about being famous, or even the expectation that I was going to make money off this or do something. I learned a bunch of things. And then when I talked to a couple guys about this locally where I had this, and then I started a podcast and people would send me emails and comments. It's like, wow, I felt the same way. Or I learned so much from you. Like ego wise, it feels pretty darn good. It fills your cup. There is an ego element to it. I mean, granted, that's what likes are and views and all of that. And so there is something about that. So for me, yeah, I mean, to say like, oh, I just do it just for the heck of it. No, I mean, it feels good and I just got some amazing comments yesterday on one of my videos. These guys are like, had so much anxiety about my child being born. I'm going through hell. Thank you so much for making this content. Like, that feels really good, and that kind of fuels you to feel like, okay, I'm granted, you don't want the ego of like, I'm doing such important work.
Right.
But in the same sense, like I'm doing work that's helping people. I feel good about that, and for most of my career, I was educating and helping people make money. And that almost seemed like at first it's cool, but like in the end, it doesn't really impact people that way. And that is a huge difference that when you start to create content that I think it can be entertainment. it could be educational, but it can also, I mean, some of the stuff that we do impacts people's lives. And like I have probably one of the ones that hits the hardest. I have a video about being a teen dad. I wasn't a teen dad, but I said, if I was, or if my child did this, what would I do? Some of the comments on there and some of the the heartfelt thank yous is just like, you can't believe that impacts somebody that way, but it does. And they say, you know what? As a result of this video, I am going to be more involved in my child's life. Like,
yeah. That's awesome.
That just feels really good. And so, but you mentioned about the content part. Yeah, I sucked. I mean, I can't say, I was just watching a video the other day about, improving title tags, or another one about camera angles, or like, I still don't know what I'm doing. And I'm 300 something videos in and 275 podcasts. And, there's so much to always improve. So you just have to kind of drop your ego and be like, all right, I'm going to try it.
Yeah.
I
mean, it sounds like, and I know that positive feedback loop really helps, and it helps keep you going. But that first time you press record, right? And that first time you press upload, and you're just, I mean, I've had the experience where you're just like crying, right? You're putting this out there. You have no idea what the response is going to be. Did that part come, how was that experience for you?
It sucked. I'm not gonna lie.
In short, it sucked.
In fact, I had some family members that had watched it and be like, who is this? Like, who are you? And so some of my initial videos, I was trying to be over the top. Like,
sure.
I'm talking now like naturally how I talk. Like, I do have energy.
Yeah.
I'm not putting it on for the camera. This is like kind of how I talk, but I was, like over the top. And I was like, well, I think that's how you're supposed to do it, like on camera. Yeah. And so I had some family members like, what are you doing? Like, that looks stupid. They literally were like criticizing me. And I was like, well, that's what I wanted to do. And so I'm figuring this out. Like, you just have to.
That's probably the biggest fear, right? Is like, you're going to put something out there that
you're going to look stupid.
Yeah. To people that you respect are going to not like it. I think that to me,
they're not doing it.
Yeah.
They're not doing it. And the people who are doing it know how hard it is.
Yeah.
I would say for me, actually, that part was difficult. More so was the idea of privacy. I have always maintained pretty protective of my identity and my family and everything. And the idea of putting myself out there, that was probably the biggest, even though I was doing internet marketing and all that, where I'm now going to start talking about my wife and my kids. I'm not putting them on camera, and I'm careful about what I say, but I live a very private life. And so I have also been criticized by people of saying hey, well, you're doing family content, but your family's not even on there, and which I understand. And that may limit, what people believe, but I did interview my kids on the podcast when they were really little. It's actually really cute to go back and look at that. But my wife is a nurse, and she has no desire to, she supports what I'm doing, but she has no desire to be on camera or be interviewed or be involved in a vlog or that's the farthest thing from what she's interested in. And so, yeah, I had no intention of, including my family. So for me, privacy was actually the big one of okay, I'm going to put this out there. I may even talk about my sex life, or, I may talk about things that people are going to judge, and it's funny because after now doing it, it's I don't care.
Yeah. So you just get to a point where you just get used to it. And
and the criticisms, how I look, I'm a robot. I think I'm this, I act like this. How could you be, I will say YouTube is pretty friendly. All I can say is my experience with TikTok was horrid. It was so toxic. It was attack. If I said something that some experts in the child community did not agree with, I was flamed. They joint whatever I don't even know what it's called. They
stitched.
They stitch you together. they started coming after me onto my website, all kinds of people coming. And now here's what I will say. This was, people that were not normally my audience.
Sure.
My audience was often fathers who are about to have a baby, just had a baby, are interested in parenting. That's it. That environment is totally different. It could be, a 22-year-old female who's angry at her father. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. And they're coming after you. How dare you say? And so that to me was I was like, okay, I don't need this platform. It's too toxic.
Now, in some ways, I do believe that experiencing what you're most afraid of helps you see, like, hey, it's not actually so bad. Was that the case at all for you? Like, you have these trepidations before you put stuff out there, but then you get the criticism from people in your family and you see the stuff online and it's like, okay, well, I'm still alive, so I can keep doing this.
Yeah, I mean, my parents instilled in me, like, feel the fear and do it anyways. And that's just what I did. Like,
yeah,
I mean, my first yoga class I went to, I was freaked out. I'm like, I don't know how to do this. Okay, but I really want to do yoga. I heard it's good for me, And so I did it. I think as an entrepreneur, I built that muscle very early on. The willing to take risk, willing to kind of look stupid, willing to put myself out there. And that is a muscle that you develop. I mean, I now could walk up on a stage and talk and it's not that big of a deal to me. I could walk into a room of people and talk about some subjects that I'm not that familiar with, or like, after a couple of times of feeling really stupid. And like you said, after you're like, oh, it actually wasn't really that bad. I didn't die. I'm still here.
Right. Yeah.
You realize that it's just, we make, the worst things that ever happened to me never happened.
Yeah.
It's in your head.
Yeah. It's like, is this what I feared so much all along? Right.
Yeah. And the other thing I will say is a little bit more tough love is, like, if you can't stand it, then don't do it. Like, get out. Like, we don't need more people, like, doing things if you can't do it. So I always encourage people to feel the fear and do it anyways. But at the same time, like, it's okay if you can't. Like, don't.
Yeah. Your most popular video by views on YouTube is tips for bringing a baby home from the hospital. Mm-hmm. When you made it, did you say, I think this is my best video? Like,
No.
does the algorithm surprise you? Is it just, how do you feel about that?
I do a couple things with how I decided to do videos, and especially at that time, I'm a search expert. So I look at search volume. So a lot of my videos come from people searching on YouTube or searching on Google. So I've studied the market pretty well. I understand what the demand is. And so a lot of my topics early on were that, so I did, if I talk about the baby just born, pregnancy, how to help your wife, anything toddler and discipline, I mean, those videos will usually do well or do better. And so I was pretty careful as far as, like, hey, this will probably do well in search, because that was a search term about bringing the baby home. But I also knew that was a problem for myself. Like, we brought the baby home and then we're like, what do we do now? So
they just give you a baby, man. I just had this experience. Right.
Well, I got to put it in a car seat. What's the requirement there?
Should be a test. There should be a test or an exam before you leave.
Yeah, I mean, and so you went through that. And so, like, that's another exercise that I go through, is like, what are these moments where I was confused, or and how can I help someone do that? And then the other is just like, is it a topic that I'm interested in? So I have a lot of videos on gratitude, empathy, self-compassion. Guess what? They don't have any views. Like,
sure.
Nobody's looking for it. All the dads who are subscribed are not watching it. They see that one come in, they're like, but I don't care. I'm doing it because I want to create this large body of work that those are topics that are crucial for me.
Sure.
And so, I mean, not that I can compare myself to a musician, but there are musicians who make music for the audience. They know, they write it to be a hit. And then there's other ones that are like, this is my art. I like this. This is what I'm going to do. And if it becomes successful, that's awesome. And I think I'm probably more in that realm now, where of course I still want acceptance of the topic. But I'm not afraid to do things that I kind of know or not. I want to do a meditation, video where just like teaching people to do intro to meditation. Like that's not going to do well on my channel.
Yeah.
But I think it's important.
Have
So
have you made a video and you're like, I fucking crushed this, and it just didn't go well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of those. Like, yeah, no, everything feels great. Like it feels great scripting it. It feels great recording it. The edit comes back and I'm like, oh wow, this is so good. And then there's other ones like the one where like my light was falling down and whatever, and it looks horrible, but there's something about it. There's that magic of like, and now I'm learning a little bit more of that, of like, the beginning, the end, the hooks, the storytelling that like, and so you learn a little bit more of that. Like, I study all of that. I watch videos of that, and I'm still struggling with how to incorporate all of that into my own videos. But the business of it is important. I look at analytics on occasion. If I want to improve a video, I got to study like what's working, what doesn't. Like I said, I just watched, there's some great videos on like how to title, using fear and curiosity and, so yeah, I just trying to hone in on the craft, whatever that craft, of making videos is.
Sure. All right. We're going to move into a segment called Jason's Advice Corner. So I'm going to ask you some advice on a few different topics. You
Okay.
good? All right.
Yeah.
Well, first, you give a lot of advice. Oh, we got a little siren. You hear the siren in the background?
Mm-mm.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
You give a lot of advice, a lot of good advice. What's some of the worst advice out there on parenting?
Well, it's funny. I just did a video on the worst parenting advice that I received. There was a couple. I had the one where it's like, the woman, it was a guy, it was an older guy, came up to me and said like, he has 4 kids, and he said, I never change diapers. He's like, let her do it. So first of all, that phrase, let her do it, doesn't go over well if you have a strong woman or any woman. And then the other is like, the diaper thing, that's an opportunity to bond with your baby. So I'm like, why would I not do that? So I've had all kinds of bad advice. Are you interested in saying something that I've given or something that I got back?
No, just advice you've heard out there. It doesn't have to be your own advice.
Yeah, there's that. The other is like the things that you have to buy. I really don't like any of that where somebody's like, this is the best thing to get. I'm more of the belief of not to buy anything and then figure out what it is that you actually need. Most things are wants, not needs. Things to make mom more comfortable, probably more important, but like sound machines, monitors, water, warmers, those are just like convenience items. They're not requirements. They are things that can make your life a little bit easier. But like I look back and we had things that were like unwrapped, never used, toys that were in the corner that were just still unwrapping that people gave up. Like we just didn't need that stuff. Now we needed diapers, we needed food, we needed a safe place for the baby to sleep and clothes. Like, but you don't need shoes for a baby. Baby doesn't wear shoes.
Man, the amount of crap we have right now that I just know we don't need is pretty upsetting.
Yeah. A baby doesn't like care much about its outfit, if you haven't noticed,
Yeah. We only need really like 3 outfits. We do have 3 dozen.
You need a button onesie that just makes it really easy to get off and on. That's it.
Yeah.
And a blanket. Like,
what advice do you have for somebody that wants to start making content and putting it out there?
Feel the fear and do it anyways. I think also niche down. Don't make general content. General content, I think it doesn't separate you in any way. And so, if it's something that you're interested in, like figure out a niche within that of, how you can add value. the biggest thing to me about making content, I mean, I guess you have to decide what kind of content. I'm of course in the educational realm, but there's other people that, I think you have to figure out, like, do you want to make entertainment content, or, something that's going to help people? But you have to provide value for people to be interested. If my advice was poor and they didn't like what I was saying and I was delivering it in a really boring way, like, I'm not going to get views. That's the simple fact. I can think I'm the best in the world, but the internet speaks. The market dictates that. And so if my videos don't do well, it's my fault. It's not like, oh, the audience just doesn't understand how great I am. Like,
Yeah.
no, I'm not saying something in an interesting way. People aren't getting it. They're not sticking around until the end of the video, like, whatever. It's like, and so I think as a creator, you just have to take that responsibility onto yourself and say, okay, like, maybe what I'm talking about is not that interesting.
Sure.
So you
What
got to take
advice
it on.
what advice would you give to your former self?
How former, I guess.
18-year-old.
Oh, wow. I would have probably made decisions. There's a couple business decisions that I made that I probably in some would have made quicker, and then in others wouldn't. I mean, like, I don't know, your life, I don't have regrets. But as an early entrepreneur, I tried to do things with, like, partners, and other people. I probably would have gone back and just hired that out rather than had business partners. Even though I had some good business partners, like, in the end, it's just difficult. It's difficult to have partnerships that work, and not because, like, the other person's, it's just like marriage. Like, it's hard. You have to work at it, and it doesn't come naturally. And then, like, eventually you have different thoughts and philosophies in business of, like, hey, we should do something this way and that way. So, like, I probably would have done some things differently in that realm.
Okay.
Where now I don't have partners now. Like, Dad University is me. The only thing I can think of as partners is, like, maybe investors, but I've done that too. I've had minority investment. I've been the minority investment. Like, I've done all of that. And that, in the end, I mean, I'm now on my own.
Yeah. All right. Last question. You're the creator of Dad University, so I appreciate that this could be a very general question, but try to find something here. I have a 18-day-old daughter. What advice do you have for me as a father, as a first-time father of an 18-year-old daughter?
18 months or 18 day. Sorry.
18 days.
18 days. Learn how to be empathetic. Empathy is looking at the situation from the other person's perspective and sort of seeing it and feeling it. And I think as a parent, when you go in and you look at whatever situation, like, let's say your baby's crying, we think, okay, well, how can I get her to stop crying? And what does she need? But stop and think about it from the perspective of your child. Like, you're new to this world. You've got, like, an uncomfortable diaper. Yeah, I'd be pretty uncomfortable too. And, like, and your perspective changes when you put yourself in that place. And especially for your spouse, let's say you're doing something all day and she's doing something else all day. And, you think what you're doing is more important than what the other person's doing, or that you are spending more time on something. Like, you often have to take a step back and just have empathy. And empathy was a game changer for me. I didn't have that really before I had children or before I was married.
Yeah.
I didn't have to. I just thought about myself,
Sure.
But for that child, that empathy will come in handy when she is 2.5, 3 years old and screaming, crying that she lost her favorite toy or her favorite, like, stuffed animal. And you are like, don't worry about it. It's just a stuffed animal. No, that's a big deal. That is a really big deal to her as a 3-year-old, that she just lost her favorite stuffed animal. So when you think of it like that, it changes how you respond to it. You're like, okay, oh, I know that, your stuffy is a really important to you. let's see if we can find this, or what can we do here? Versus, oh, we'll just get another one, or, oh, don't worry about it, or we dismiss things. And so, because we put our adult brain and we apply and male brain often to these situations, that's not the best solution.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Jason, this is a great conversation. Where can people go to connect with you? Where can they go to learn more about Dad University?
Yeah, daduniversity.com. That's the easiest way. I'm on every social channel at, Dad University, but, and my YouTube videos are kind of where a lot of people see me and, can subscribe there and get all the videos. But yeah, daduniversity.com. We have the membership there. It's great. It's pay what feels good. If people want to contribute to that. And I do some lives on occasion, and, hopefully they get something out of it.
All right. Awesome. I'll put that all in the show notes as well. Jason Kreidman, ladies and gentlemen, from Dad University. Thank you, Jason.
All right. Take care.